This meeting is being recorded.
Hello and welcome to Youreworththeprice. My name is Vanessa Price. Today, I have a very, very special guest. She's going to tell you about some things that she has gone through, things that she's endured, and she's going to help you to get through those same obstacles and barriers that you are going through. She's from the Bay Area. Yes, it's where I want to go and experience all the water, the beaches, everything. Just lay out and relax. So today, let me tell you who she is. She's got that beautiful background over there. She's sitting there looking beautiful. Her name is Crystal Washington. So let's bring her on. Crystal, how are you today?
That is an amazing introduction. Oh my God. Thank you so much for allowing me to come on your amazing platform.
You're
You're
welcome.
such a beautiful, beautiful soul. I love you so much.
Thank
And I'm
you.
ready to get right into it.
Okay, okay. So let's see. Well, I know that you are a resilient woman.
Absolutely.
You have three children. I'm not going to tell your age. Some women don't like to tell their age. You told me, but I'm not going to tell it. You can tell people if you want to. You
Yes.
are homeschooled. You homeschool your children, and you are a mother. Well, I already said that, and a wife to a wonderful husband. I believe his name is DeAndre.
Absolutely. You got it right.
Okay, okay. All right, so
Yes.
that is a blessing. So tell me about
Absolutely.
your childhood. I understand that you started out pretty early with your child, raising a child.
Yes.
Tell me something about that.
Okay. So raising my child.
Mhm.
Um, I had a baby, my beautiful daughter. She's 21 now.
Okay.
I had her when I got pregnant when I was 15 years old.
Mhm.
So right then and there, you can tell I had a pretty rough childhood. It
Yeah.
was a little confusing in some ways, but yeah, I love her so much. I'm telling you, the
I
girl
bet.
has taught me, she has pushed me. When you're at that age, you think everything is a mistake and your
Yeah.
choices were just awful. But today, when I look at my life, I'm like, you know what? I thank God for that baby girl right there. I
Mhm.
thank God for having her. I just, in some ways, I didn't like that I had her at a young age because I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared to be a mom. I was still a baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nevertheless, I thank God that she's alive today. She's well. She's healthy. Our relationship is good, and I can look back now and see some of the major things that happened. I thought was going to be for my downfall. I would never have a future, but it actually was a blessing. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
That's good. That's good. And some young ladies, when they have children at a young age, they end up, not finishing high school and they end up having to get their GED or
Yeah.
just living on the government welfare or something like that. And sometimes it's okay. You may have to do that for a little while, but you went on and finished high school.
Yeah, I did. I finished high school, and that was major for me. In fact, 2 months after I had hers, probably literally like a month and a half after I had my baby, I wanted to go back to school. I was like, no, I am not going to be a statistic. I
Yeah.
am going to graduate. And so that's what I did. My mom was like, no, you shouldn't go back. It was during winter. I had her in December. My birthday was in January, but I'm like, no, I need to go back to school. And she was like, it's going to be cold. You're still healing,
Yeah.
and I understood where my mother was coming from, but I was looking into my future. Like my baby really, she pushed my mentality like,
That's excellent.
I'm not going to be here always. This situation happened, but I can recover. And so what I did was I went back to school.
Mhm.
And while I was in school, you get out at around three. This is high school, and so you get out around 3:30. I would go from school to work.
Wow.
So not only I came back, but I actually started maximizing the potential I knew I had in
Mhm.
spite of, just a little bump in the road.
That's
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Wow. Well, tell me about your child's father. Was he involved in it?
No, he wasn't. He was not involved in it. He was the first guy that I've ever been with, intimate with. He was a little bit older than I was. He was about 5 years older, and I didn't find that out till midstream. We were in a relationship, and he actually is not from California. He moved to California,
Okay.
and so he had to get his Californian's ID. And so that's how I found out how old he actually was. And I still kept it a secret because I loved him so much, right? He was my first love.
Yeah.
I gave him my virginity.
Yeah.
And so, I just fell for everything.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I kept that under the hat and just kept on in a relationship. But a little time after that, I found out he was not faithful to me. Um, yeah. And it wasn't even with a bad chick. It was a woman, a young girl, who also was as young as I was, who ran around the neighborhood. And so, but it broke my heart.
Of
It broke
course.
my heart. It broke me.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so, yeah, he was really pretty much my first heartbreak.
Yeah.
So, no, after that, I just told him I did not want to see him again. I did not want to deal with him again. And I became very bitter, very angry. I was embarrassed because everybody knew we were together,
Yeah.
right? And so when the information got out, I was just embarrassed. And so from that point on, I don't know, I just totally cut him out of my life.
Yeah.
There were times, yeah, he came around and, wanted to know if it was possible if we can get back, but I was so just disappointed. It
Yeah.
was my first breakup, and I just felt the best thing for me to do was just move on because
Yeah.
I couldn't trust him.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
Was he ever abusive to you, or did he?
Well, you know what? No, he was not abusive.
He was
No,
not.
he was not abusive to me. The only thing was the betrayal. And I just could
Uh,
not take that heartbreak and me crying and depressed. So I just got out of that situation.
okay.
So no, he was never verbally abusive, physically abusive. It was just that betrayal. And I was just like, you know what? I cannot trust you. Yeah. So yeah, that's how that all ended. And so I moved on with my life. I continued with school. I continued working until I got into another relationship.
Okay. And how was
Yeah.
that for you? Was it better for you? Hope.
Well, I think that in the beginning it seems better.
Oh,
I was on my way. I will never forget. I was on my way to school, like any other day. It's been about 2 months after I had broken it off with I would call then my first love.
yeah.
And I was just crying and just going through the motion. I was depressed. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to hang out with any of my friends. I knew everybody in the neighborhood and around the neighborhood knew about it.
Mhm.
And so I just kind of wanted to go on, but my mindset, I was so angry. I was so disappointed and I felt betrayed. And that's a big thing for me. I'm a very loyal person. And I didn't know it then, but I just knew that I did not like the fact that I laid down myself with this guy. And we used to go to movies. Like I literally did not understand betrayal. I didn't
Yeah.
until that happened to me.
Mhm.
And so I was walking to school one day, late for school. It didn't even matter to me, right? My grades started going down. Um, I started hanging around people that hung around the school. They wasn't in the school. They would just hang around because I went to Fremont High School.
Okay.
That's in Oakland. And so they had off-campus lunch. So you would always see somebody around outside the school and it was okay, right? And so I started hanging with those people. So when I would go to school, it would sometimes be 9:15 or 10 o'clock. And so nothing mattered to me. And so one day as I was walking to school, I think I was about 4 blocks away from the school, and this loud sound came from behind me. So I'm walking straight, and this car is just like a loud music, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. This is Oakland.
Uh-huh.
And so when I was getting ready to, proceed across the street, The car had pulled up and kind of cut me off before I got off of the sidewalk to go into the street. And he was like, hey, a gentleman, he was like, hey, how you doing? What's your name? Just the things that most street guys do.
Yeah.
And so I was so out of it. I was like, bye,
Yeah.
I know what you about, bye.
Yeah.
And he was persistent. He would not give up. I'm walking, he's walking with me. He's telling me how good I look. I had nice hair, long hair. My hair was pressed, girl. My stuff. I mean, I was impressed, but my stuff had to be nice. And so, I was just like, okay, bye, but this guy was very adamant. And so, you know what I did? I did what normal girls do. They just give them a number. It's not always your number, but you just shoot a number and okay, bye, And when I got ready to give him my number, he said, well, here, I'm going to give you my number just in case if this is the wrong number. So I just kind of put it in my pocket. I walked to school and thought nothing of it. Well, about 2.5 weeks later, I ended up calling him because I felt very lonely. I, of course, was very depressed. At the time, I was working for Century 8 Theaters. It's closed down now. It was right on Hagenberger Road. And, everybody was having a good time. I mean, I don't know. I think it was a holiday and everybody was going to come to see a great movie. And I was just like, you know what? Why should I go home after this? I can go and hang out, And so then I thought about him. I felt like I gave him enough time, and I was just like, well, he do have a car. The last guy didn't, he, looked like he was going somewhere, the last guy, and so so I ended up calling him and he started bringing me lunch. When I was on my break, and that's how it all happened until eventually I ended up in his car. He would take me home from work, and he was well known in the Bay Area, just by his car and how it looked. Wow. And so I felt very, I mean, people knew me and really knew me then, because they seen me in this guy's car, and he claimed me, and, and that was that. And so that's how we kind of got together. And it was good in the beginning, but it turned left. It went left really, really quick. Really quick. One night I don't know what happened, but I can't remember what the situation was, but I remember we were just hanging out and we had got into like this disagreement. And I proceeded to walk away. Mind you, it's about 11 o'clock at night. And I'll explain why I was out that late, when you give me the questions. But, we were just out and, we got into it and, verbally just had a disagreement. And I kind of walked away from him. And so he was behind me still sitting on the car, just kind of leaning on the car. So I'm getting ready to just walk home. I was just upset about,
Right.
And I remember I would never forget. All of a sudden, I felt this both hands pressed up on my back. And he pushed me so hard that if I wouldn't have caught myself, I would have fell literally flat on my face. It was that fast.
Oh my God.
And I went into total shock. Like, what do I do?
Oh.
Do I run? Do I scream?
Yeah.
Do I turn around and hit him back? Do I just stand here and cry? Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And so I didn't fall to the ground, but I kind of almost like stumbled. Yeah. And so I slowly turned around because I'm like, oh my God, this is my first experience, dealing with someone being physical with me. And so by the time I turned around, he was right in my face and he was like, I am so, so sorry. I didn't mean it, yeah. And I was like, I didn't say anything. I was just afraid. I was shaking. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't. Yeah. And so, that was my first experience with domestic violence. Yeah.
So why were you out late at night at 11 o'clock?
Well, let's back up a little bit. I may need some tissue. Where's my tissue? Well, so I was raised in church. Both my father and mother, they were married. My mother's from Nassau, Bahamas.
Okay. Okay.
So my dad and my mom met by him because he was a traveling evangelist. My father was.
Okay.
And so he traveled back home where she's from. And on Christmas Eve, they met. And right off, they hit it off. He had to come back to America and do his little ministry and everything.
Okay.
And they wrote letters back and forth. And, he eventually got her and brought her here. And so we stayed in my mother and father, they stayed in a 2-bedroom house,
Okay.
and they had 4 kids with that union.
Oh,
So I was an only girl. So it was 3 boys and 1 girl.
yeah.
My father not only was a traveling evangelist, but he was a construction worker.
Okay.
So he was always gone,
Yeah.
like sometimes 2 or 3 months at a time.
Mm.
And then when he would be home, he would be working construction. So, but I love my dad.
Yeah.
No matter what, I loved my dad.
Yeah.
So when he was home, he wasn't a family man. So I never really experienced him embracing me and just saying he loved me. I love you, baby girl, just kind of, showing me some affection. He just wasn't a family man. And then when he would be gone so long at times, when he would go and preach in Rochester, New York, in LA, just he would preach in the Bay Area. When he would come home, I would just grab him and hug him, and Daddy, I love you, and things like that. So, life was really a challenge for me to understand what love really looked like, and so my mother, she was a very quiet, reserved woman. She always made the best of everything. She made things work. So we didn't wear the best of clothes. We wore hand-me-downs. Um, we barely had toys to play with. And so it was really trying. I know it was trying. So a lot of things I wanted to do as a kid, I wouldn't ask my parents, because I knew we were poor.
Yeah.
And so my mother would make bread. There were times that my dad used to fish a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So they would fish so that we can eat. Like we were really like, we were here. We didn't get welfare. We didn't get food stamps or anything like that. So yeah. Let me see. People told me that I had my father's personality. So like my mother, she's very quiet, reserved, My father's an extrovert. He loves people. He's a people's person. And I feel like that's the kind of woman that I am. I love to connect with people.
Yeah.
I love to share my testimony. I love to help people. So yeah. So that's pretty much it when it comes to like my parents. And so my father, he was a very strict man.
Okay.
Very strict. So it was holiness or hell strict.
Yeah. I've heard that before.
Yeah, we was born into holiness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we couldn't wear like earrings, makeup, and things like that.
That was
He didn't
me.
celebrate holidays.
Mhm.
So we didn't celebrate anything but Christmas, and that was a Christmas plays. And when we get the
Been
little
there,
brown
done
paper
that.
bag,
Mhm.
huh?
Been there, done that.
Yeah. And we didn't understand it growing up. We couldn't play with a lot of the neighborhood kids because the parents, he in his eyes were worldly parents.
Mhm.
And so we lost a lot of that childhood and happiness of just growing up, learning and exploring, and interacting with other kids. We did not really have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so my father actually took sick and he had gangrene.
Mhm.
And so I watched his health decline. He had, I'm talking about holes in his feet from gangrene, feet swollen,
Mhm.
flesh falling off of his heel. My mother having to clean it every time he would come home from work. The doctors would say, Mr. Luthani, I think you need to get these feet amputated so you can live, if you don't. And he said, no, I believe God. I believe God is going to heal me. And I remember we stayed in church. So he would go across every testimony service, every meeting, every revival. If he had an opportunity, he would try to make an opportunity to justify.
I believe that.
Okay. And he would tell people, I believe God is going to heal me from gangrene. And one morning, I woke up to my mother changing his feet, the dressing on his feet.
Mhm.
And literally, I was right there where she started pulling off the dressing.
Mhm.
And those holes that were huge, like quarters, size of quarters, they were closed up.
Mhm. Mhm.
And God literally healed my father
Mhm.
of gangrene. So just watching his life of faith and his confession of faith, I believe that that seed of faith was, it had was in me
Yeah.
when I watched him.
Yeah.
And I watched the miracle working power of God in his life. And so that was wonderful to see.
Yeah.
But then later on, the doctor diagnosed him with heart disease or heart failure. And that's when it really hit hard for my family.
Mm.
And on August the 20th, 1996, when I was 12 years old, my father passed away.
Oh my
And
God.
so that was huge. I didn't understand the process of death. I didn't understand it. We didn't go to therapy, so I didn't know how to move forward as a child. Um, and so that was really hard for me. So my mother, of course, was a stay at home. So she eventually had to go out and work. And that's what she did. And so we were left alone at home a lot. So when we come home from school, my mother would not be there because she would be working, providing. Yeah. And so that's where the staying out late, it became normal for me,
Yeah.
And then, of course, my mother had to have her life being a mom, go out and enjoy her life, maybe get a hotel room, just, spend time with yourself or whatever. And so there were many, many nights when we would come home from school and do our homework, do our chores, that we would be home alone. My brothers and I would be home alone. So then, on the flip side, it was good because we weren't living under this strict rule anymore. But we did. I can say I miss my dad a lot because I was the closest one to him
Yeah. Yeah.
as the kids. Yeah. But then the other side was, we had all these kids coming in and out of our house. Our house was known to be the fun house. We'll play music, we'll hang out, we'll do dances. My brothers try to rap. They couldn't rap, but they tried to rap. And we just had a lot of fun. Their friends would come and connect with my friends, but we had to make sure everybody was out before mama got home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think for me, I started acting out of rebellion after a while because it would be like 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock. And yeah, I should be home. But I was just acting out because I got this heartbreak from the first guy that I was with, and my father being gone. I didn't process that right. And my mother not being home. So I think my mother kind of looked at me like, I could understand why she's going through like this.
Yeah.
And my mother's a very reserved woman. She's not confrontational. So I guess our personality, I was just set on it. Like, I'm about to hang out. And that's exactly what I did. I hung out.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine that. You get so used to not being able to do things. And
Yes.
when you have an opportunity, you feel like this is my chance. I understand that. I understand. But tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about did you go into a little bit of depression at one time? I think you mentioned something to me about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what happened with the first relationship, I knew I was dealing with a lot of depression, even with my father passing away. There was right after. I mean, now they have so many resources for grief for students now, but back then in '96, I don't remember like some of the counselors at my school hearing about my father passing because my mother was very involved in our schooling. She was at every play. I was part of drill team. I was part of double dutch competition. I was part of traffic school. I was the little head traffic girl telling people, come on out, come to I was that girl,
Had it
So I
going on.
really liked school and the activities.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I was just surprised now that I think about it that I didn't have people to kind of gather around me when I came back to school after my father's funeral.
Uh-huh.
So I knew that depression had set in some way. I remember I have a younger brother.
Uh-huh.
He's 1 year younger than me.
Okay.
And so I have two older brothers. We're the middle one is about a year older than I am. Skip a year and then he's a year older.
Okay.
So they would go to high school when me and my brother was still in middle school, and we would wait at home in the morning because my mother had already went to work. So we would just wait at home in the morning, and me and my younger brother would literally be crying
Wow.
because the house would feel so cold and so empty without dad, and mom wasn't here, and we just didn't feel covered.
Yeah.
We didn't feel like we had that support, and we didn't know how to express how we feel
Yeah.
except through the tears.
Yeah.
And so me and my brother really gained a real strong relationship as we were growing up, young teen life. And but yeah, we went through a lot. We went through a lot, and we didn't get the healing that we needed at all.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's almost like empty nest syndrome. Of course, it's not. But when people leave, when your children leave the house,
yeah,
they're gone and you just start to grieve. But I know that's quite different. Death is different when your dad is gone. You sound like
yeah,
you were a daddy's girl, just like I was.
absolutely.
And I can imagine that you really, really miss them a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. I do. I do.
Probably spoiled by your older brothers. Can I say that? Really?
No.
Really?
No, because like I said, dad wasn't an affectionate kind of guy. So most time when you do have that, you kind of teach your sons to cover your sister, to
Uh-huh.
look out for her. Well, he didn't teach that to them.
Okay.
I mean, some people just pick it up and it's just in them. And it's like, mama could be
That's
a
true.
crackhead, daddy could, mama could be a prostitute, daddy is a
That's
pimp,
true.
but I'm going to cover my little brother and sister. You just have people that's like that. Nobody have to teach me. It's just when I see it, I need to fix it. Right. But I didn't have that. And I don't lay it to their charge. I understand like they really was going through just as much as I was going through. And we just didn't have the necessary tools to move on, to live a healthy life, So no, I was really naked. I was really naked out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, after feeling so low and depressed and everything, what made you decide to get up and just start over again, decide to love yourself and others?
I think that one of the things for me, I now looking back, I think that it really was I just had this knowing that God was always there with me. I think one of the ways I knew that is because we fished a lot.
Mhm.
And if you know anything about fishing, you are sitting there. I don't, if you're a kid, y'all ain't going nowhere. You just gonna
That's
sit and look
true.
at the water, play with the little ladybugs
That
and,
is so true.
get into stuff, right? But you have, for me,
Mhm.
it was an opportunity for me to look at the wonders of God as a
Mhm.
kid. And
Mhm.
so I knew that man didn't make this. Man couldn't make the waters flow the way that they did.
Yes.
And all of these different color rocks on the other side and these
That's
animals. So
right.
like we would be around a lot of acres of land,
Mhm.
and we would see different fruits, and
Yeah.
we would see some of the fishes that my father, he didn't just catch catfish, he catch striped bass, he catch trout, and it amazed me like, wow, I know that there is a God. And so I would couple that of course with church. And a lot of people know me. They know I love Christmas. Christmas is my thing. Okay.
Mhm.
And I told you we didn't celebrate anything but Christmas plays. And
Uh-huh.
so
Mhm.
I just was fascinated. I really loved the whole idea of a baby Jesus. He's coming down to save us from our sins, and he's the savior of the world, and God loves us. So I always kind of knew within me
Mhm.
that God was always here. And though I couldn't see him,
Yeah.
I would feel him sometimes in church, and I had questions,
Yeah.
but I just kind of knew. So for me, what helped me to kind of get back up is knowing the God that kept me when I was young, and my father passing.
Yeah.
There were times that I went through a lot of physical violence.
Yeah.
I almost took my own life.
Yes.
There were times I felt afraid and scared. I felt I was going to be kidnapped, at that young age. Your dad is not around, you're going to school, your mom's not there. So I just kind of knew that same God that knows where I'm standing right now, where I'm at, is the same God that is going to deliver me and that's going to strengthen me. And I watch my mother. I'm like, no, this ain't no human strength right here. This is I see why we've been going to church. So I just felt like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what got me through it.
Wow. 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 Well, you guys, we're gonna have to end it right here, but Next week, we're going to
Yeah.
continue this. And she's going to tell you about some music she heard. Y'all remember Carlton Pearson? He used to stir some things up. Woo!
Come on, come on.
So she's going to talk to you about that in the beginning on next week. So make sure you stay tuned. Don't miss us next Thursday night, 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, 9 o'clock Central Standard Time, and 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And always remember that you are worth the price and stay on top of the world. Peace.